When there's no more room in hell.
The dead will start a podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to No More Room in Hell, number 48. This is Mike, and joining me, as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom? How are you doing?
Greetings and salutations, facial surgery fans. Or should I say plastic surgery? I think I'm going to go with plastic surgery fans. Yeah, I'm doing pretty damn good, Mike. How the hell you been?
Doing well. We're getting into spooky season now, and the heat wave, and at least in Northern California, seems to be over with. We're actually like in the low 70s. It rained a little bit today. So, you know, in a matter of 2 weeks, it went from like 109 to the 70s. So can't complain there.
Perfect timing, too. I'm going to Disneyland Tuesday, and I was terrified I was going to have to deal with 100-degree weather, but it's looking like it's going to be a nice mild day. It's a Tuesday at Disneyland in September, so it should be fairly dead. I'm excited.
Hell yeah. I'm thinking like when we plan our trip down there, we're going to like plan it so the days we're at Disneyland are in the week, just to maybe cut down on some of the business, like, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. And then
post Labor Day. Yeah, post Labor Day is awesome for theme parks in California. Post Labor Day is great because obviously you're going to avoid most of the summer crowds. It's also going to be mostly locals because, you know, vacation. Most people aren't vacationing in September, October. So, yeah. I try to avoid that kind of stuff in the summer because it's just tourist trap hell. But during the off season, I do enjoy it. So,
and they've already converted over to their like Halloween party or whatever they call it at Disneyland, right?
Downtown Disney has. I don't know if Disneyland itself has. I can only assume. I mean, you know, as soon as I walk in there Tuesday, I'm going straight to Haunted Mansion just to see if there was like any Halloween updates or anything.
Hell yeah. I love the Haunted Mansion. I still make sure to get on it every time.
Yep.
All right. Also joining us, it's Derek. What's up, Derek? How are you?
I'm great, Michael. How are you today? I can't wait to talk about this Billy Idol video. I don't know why somebody wanted us to review a Billy Idol music video.
One of his greatest hits.
Oh, yeah.
Probably. Okay, well, I guess we can get right into our opening of the show, which is catching up on what we watched. It's been a long time since we recorded, so we're not going to probably talk about everything we've watched since then, but we've got a few things, I'm sure, each of us. So, Venom, I'll start with you. What do you got up first?
All right. Well, the first movie I'm going to talk about today is not a new movie. This is actually an older film from the 70s. This is actually going to be a follow-up review, and this follow-up review comes to you courtesy of Mr. Derek B. Let me go ahead and set up the story. Recently, I was on the podcast Under the Stairs. Derek and I were on the Sixes, which, of course, included 1976, 86, 96, and 2006. On the 1976 episode, there was a movie on there that I had never seen before called Who Can Kill a Child? I'd always heard great things about the film. I never got a chance to see it. So I watched it for the episode of the summer series for the podcast Under the Stairs. And unfortunately, I found the only version of it that I could find was just terrible. Just film rips and bad audio, no subtitles whatsoever, which isn't a problem because this is a Spanish film. For those who don't know, I am Spanish, so I understood everything fine except what I couldn't hear. The audio dub on the version of the film that I watched was so goddamn bad, I couldn't even pick up what some of the Spanish actors were saying. Even with my volume, and I've got a Sony Atmos system here, with my volume cranked up, I couldn't tell what these people were saying. and it was frustrating. And unfortunately, it affected my review on the summer series. I didn't say the movie was garbage, but I tried to give it as objective of a review as I could, while still making it very plainly obvious that I did not enjoy my viewing experience. So what happens about a week after we record that episode? I look in my mail. Lo and behold, there is a freshly brand new sealed Blu-ray of Who Can Kill a Child in my mailbox from our friend, Mr. Derek B. Thank you once again, Derek, for the 10th time. That was really good. So anyway, my follow-up review now is, yes, I do actually enjoy this movie. Once I could see everything on screen, once I can hear everything, I did my overall rating of the film did go up. I had a much better viewing experience with it this time. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna say that it's a classic like some people say, because unfortunately, for those who haven't seen it, it's very much a Night of the Living Dead ripoff, but instead of zombies, it's kids. It's basically an island full of kids. This movie is very much, I would say, Anthropophagus meets Night of the Living Dead. Even the ending of Who Can Kill a Child is incredibly reminiscent of Night of the Living Dead. So once I put that connection together, I don't want to say I lost interest in the movie, but the fact that it wasn't an ultra original story did kind of hinder my rating a little bit. But ultimately, I did want to come back and do the follow-up review and say that yes, I did enjoy it a lot more. And once again, just thank you, Derek, for that, because it definitely takes a movie that I just had a bad experience with, and now I own it on like a nice, beautiful Blu-ray, and the experience is a lot better. Like, this is definitely a movie I'll revisit. So, Derek, why don't you chime in on Who Can Kill a Child?
Revenge. It's I agree with you. Like, some of the story, even that's with all movies. Like, one of the movies we're going to talk about today, that's my main complaint about it. But yeah, it's interesting, that aspect where, yeah, like if you watch like a shitty rip or something, yeah, I can understand I get that all the time. Especially like prepping for like year series for like 22 shots. It was like finding like these garbage TV films that looked like they were recorded off like 7 VHSs. It's like terrible out there sometimes for watching movies.
Yep. Mike, have you ever seen Who Can Kill a Child?
I don't think so, but it's like I don't think so based on a title, but what you're describing definitely sounds like something I should see, because it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, you probably recognize it's a remake, More Come Out and Play. That's actually a remake of the movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah. The movie definitely has like an anthropophagus feel at the beginning, in the sense that there are two foreigners who, they're strangers in a strange land. They end up going to an island. The island ends up being uninhabited, or at least they think it's uninhabited. And then the movie kind of goes from there. So the beginning of it kind of has the feel of Anthropophagus. Not that there's anybody eating their own intestines in this movie, not by any stretch. But once we actually get the first altercation with one of the children in the town, it solidly turns into Night of the Living Dead for pretty much the duration of the film. And like I said, that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is 1976, so it's 8 years after the release of the original Night of the Living Dead. So it's, it's not like it's not an egregious ripoff by any stretch. Not like, Mondo Cannibal or some of those other movies that are incredibly blatant ripoffs. This one definitely does feel more like an homage, like a loving homage. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like a cash grab, I guess, is the main thing I'm going for. Like, there's actually artistic value here. There's some good performances. We see a pregnant woman die in a way that I've never, ever seen before or even fathomed. And I really enjoyed that scene. So, overall, I do recommend this movie, whether you're a fan of crazy kids or not. And one of the most gratifying scenes in this whole movie, folks, if you've been listening to me for a long time, you know that I have no problem with killing kids on screen. No problem whatsoever. This movie has a scene where our antagonist mows down a gang of kids with a goddamn Uzi. I literally
Actually, the
stood up in
poster
my
cover of the Blu-ray too.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that is the cover of the movie. Folks, when that scene occurred, I literally stood up in my living room and applauded. When a movie doesn't have the fear of killing a child on screen, those are some of my favorite movies. Not to say that I hate children and want to see the harm come to them, not by any stretch, but crazy kids like this, yeah, absolutely. And maybe one particular kid in one of the movies that we're going to talk about today, I wouldn't mind seeing him get a few comeuppance, but that's a discussion for a little bit later. But yeah. Who Can Kill a Child, 1976, written and directed by Narcisco Ibanez Serrardo. Yeah, wow.
It's sitting at a 7.2 on IMDb.
It's a solid movie. It really is. I feel bad that I gave it the review I gave it on Podcast Under the Stairs. I tried to be as objective as possible, and I tried to constantly caveat the conversation with, I didn't enjoy this experience, and unfortunately a bad viewing experience is going to affect the rating of the movie. I mean, if you watched, no matter how good a movie is, if you watch the original Night of the Living Dead not Night of the Living Dead, excuse me, Nightmare on Elm Street, let's go with that one. If you watch the original Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time on a VHS tape that's been played 13,000 times, the audio is warbly, there's video glitches all throughout it, it's going to affect your experience. So I am very happy that Derek made sure that I had a good experience watching this movie. So yeah, Who Can Kill a Child? Go out and watch it if you haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to track down a copy because it actually kind of looks interesting and good to me. So I'm like, shit, I need to find it.
Yeah. The director's other movie is fucking awesome too. He did The House That Screamed, which is actually the movie that kind of influenced Suspiria.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
nice.
Pretty good.
All right, Derek, what do you got up first?
Well, I was catching up with a horror anthology that I've been wanting to check out for a while, but yeah, I know I could have just watched this on Shudder every day, so I finally did, and that's VHS 94. Woo! And yeah, like after like the last few VHS, especially like Viral, I kind of like died inside. But I think everybody did at that point. But yeah, I was excited. I just haven't. It takes me a while to stream a lot of stuff because there's always so much streaming. So I never got a chance to watch this until recently. And man, there's a lot of good like practical effects shit going on in this movie. That I was like, the first story, I love that kind of setup where it's like a news report and like going into sewers and there's like a fucking Ratma god.
Ratma.
Hail Ratma.
I follow Ratma on Twitter.
I want to pet him.
Right? Don't let him spit on you.
Yeah. He's got the Loposaurus spit. But yeah. Yeah, it's pretty fun. And, he goes into like this weird one with like a funeral home, which was kind of creepy, kind of atmospheric, good stuff. Then out of nowhere, it turns into a Thai splatter movie with robot-human hybrids killing, running amok. Kind of has like a Doom perspective too with the main character. Yeah, which was kind of cool, and I like that aspect of it. And yeah, all the stories I thought were pretty great, even the ones that were lesser. I thought were kind of better than the ones in Viral before that. So,
by far, yeah,
it was a decent watch, and just check it out. It's a fun anthology. Probably the weakest part is the wraparound story. But, I kind of dug it because it kind of reminded me of Rec 2 in a way.
That's true, too. Yeah. When we reviewed this last year, I was so high on this movie. I am a big fan of the franchise. Obviously, I love horror anthology in general, but the first two VHS movies are just absolute classics to me. I totally love them. Viral was unfortunately a step back from the quality of the first two films. The stories in Viral just were not very interesting. But 94 completely blew my mind. When we reviewed it on Fresh Cuts, I basically gave it the same review Derek just did. I loved every single segment, some more than others, obviously, and ultimately it's the wraparound that's a little bit of a disappointment, especially when you get the end, like if you will, the twist of the wraparound. It's just not very fulfilling, not very satisfying at all. But all the segments I think are great. I mean, the weakest segment in the whole movie. I mean, I've heard some people say it's the funeral home. I've heard other people say it's the vampire one, but I mean, honestly, I couldn't pick the weakest. I can pick the strongest because I obviously Timo's segment in this one just fucking. I said it on the Fresh Cuts review. It is my favorite segment from a horror anthology ever. Period. Nothing even comes close. That segment put an ear-to-ear grin and a giant erection on me. I just fucking loved it, and the whole movie is just awesome. So. And for those who are curious, it was in my top 10. I believe it was at number 7 for 2021. I loved it that much. So, yeah.
Nice. And, I'm excited for 99.
Yeah, and 99's apparently getting good reviews. Like, I don't read the whole reviews, but I'll read, like, the blurbs, like, the title of the article or whatever, and it seems like it's getting some pretty positive feedback. So, yeah, that'll definitely be a Fresh Cut.
I'm expecting that shit one from Kuso.
I hope so. Absolutely.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, VHS 94 is cool. It was a good comeback too, because like Venom said, after kind of viral, took a few steps back. It was sort of like in a situation where like, okay, does that cement it that this is gonna be the last one? And then when they did announce 94. There was that little bit of skepticism, like, can it rebound? And it actually did. And on VHS 99, it looks like, yeah, they're really going for kind of the gimmick of right on the cusp of, like, the digital era. Because, 99, the internet and DVDs and stuff were, starting to introduce themselves to the marketplace, but it wasn't exactly like the complete digital world yet. So I love how they're kind of playing with that era of things started to slowly convert around that time, but not completely. So they showed like a teaser for like a teaser trailer for 99, and I liked what I saw. So I'm hopeful. If 99 is at least as good as 94, it's going to be good.
Oh,
you know what make it amazing? If at the end when it hits 2000, Chris Jericho just jumps out of the room. Break the walls down. Break that. Y2J. And he's just giving people like the walls of Jericho, but splitting them really in half.
Oh, man.
All right. My first one up. So, we're not at the end of 2020. I was going to say the wrong year, 2022 yet, but we're kind of getting to that portion of the year where it's time to, or at least how I do it, I try to start filling in like my 2022 gaps yet, because obviously with Fresh Cuts, there's going to be about, give or take, 50 movies reviewed on there from 2022, but to kind of round out, making your list at the end of the year of your top, you still want to kind of go out and watch some that we weren't able to cover on the show this year. It's kind of been weird in that way where there's a lot of stuff that I scroll by on VOD or just browse that really hasn't caught my attention. I'm kind of hanging back to get recommendations, but one that was on Shudder, I think it's been up there for like a month or so now, that we didn't do it for Fresh Cuts because there was probably something theatrical the same week, and it just kind of passed me by. I eventually got to it, and that would be What Josiah Saw. Have either of you guys seen it yet?
I have not.
Yes.
It stars Robert Patrick, the T-1000 from T2. That's probably what he's most famous for.
And Nick Stahl, who played John Connor in T3.
Yeah, yes. So and I think another reason why this one I kept putting it on the back burner because it is like just about 2 hours long, and those always like, well, obviously the length of it takes longer to watch. Duh, that's obvious. I just meant for my period of time, a window. Sometimes it's like I'll pass it up for like something shorter, but I had the time. And I actually did like it quite a bit. I was kind of surprised how much I liked it because I haven't really heard about it talked about that much by anyone really. And after I had seen it, a couple other people had mentioned that they liked it too, but it's a pretty dark story. Kind of has like, religious undertones, a little bit of a redemption going on, and then there's a cool little, well, I don't know if I guess cool is not the word, but there is somewhat of a twist at the end that reminded me of another movie, a non-horror movie, the way they kind of handled their twist, which I'm not going to mention because I don't want to give anything away, obviously. But Derek, you mentioned you saw it. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it was great. I agree with everything you said, and plus Robert Patrick, mic drop.
Yeah, and he was really good. Like,
he's fantastic at it.
Yeah, sometimes with these kind of movies, you wonder, especially when it's someone who had like somewhat of a bigger career earlier, and it's like, okay, are they just taking a paycheck to phone something in on an independent smaller movie? But no, he was really good. And I, like I said, I'm kind of surprised this one hasn't been more talked about, especially being on Shudder, because it should give it a big enough audience where I would have seen it, on horror groups and stuff. But I highly recommend it. Don't let it slip by. I would say give it, whether it's in someone's top 10 at the end of the year or not, I would say give it consideration, because you could end up liking it just as much as me, if not more.
Yeah.
All right, Venom, back to you.
All right. My next film is, unfortunately, this is Mr. Venom's Stinker of the Month. This film is called, this film is also available on Shudder. This is called Allegoria. It is actually written and directed by Spider-One.
This movie.
This fucking movie, yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, Spider-One is Rob Zombie's little brother. He was the singer and founder of Power Man 5000, that I guess industrial metal, I guess you could go for, type band that I never really got into. I never really got into Rob Zombie either, but that's a story for another show. So yeah, this is his feature-length directorial debut. Obviously, he directs most of the Power Man 5000 videos. He's also directed a couple of shorts, like 3 or 4 shorts since then, and then this is his feature-length debut. And unfortunately, folks, I can't really say anything positive about this movie. This movie it's kind of set up like an anthology, except it's one group of artists, and the movie opens with this just weird scene at like a acting class where the acting instructor is like pressuring this girl to do this scene, and then out of nowhere she fucking turns into a demon and attacks the guy, and I'm just like, and that really tells you a lot of what you're getting with this movie. Just a lot of what the fuck, a lot of plot holes, unanswered questions. Like I said, it's set up like an anthology, but it's just not a very well made movie. Unfortunately, it's not very well edited. I don't think the score is very good, considering an actual metal musician did this movie. The score is like nothing memorable. The editing is pretty bad. The performances. It's funny that all these actors are part of a theater group, because I don't think any of them can act yet. They obviously just started taking acting classes. So I can't really say too many positive things about this. I mean, if you're into weird, out there anthologies, then I would say check it out. I mean, I kind of look at this kind of like Kuzo from a few years ago. You remember that movie from White Lotus that was also kind of an anthology based around an earthquake in LA that released, monsters and all sorts of random shit. Like, I look at that movie. I actually like Kuzo a little bit better than this one, because Kuzo at least had some interesting characters in it.
George Clinton in it.
There you go, exactly. And the talking, what was it? Talking mole or talking pimple, whatever that fucking thing was. That thing was funny as hell. But anyway, yeah. This one, unfortunately, I can't really say too many positive things about it. Derek, what'd you think of it?
I can't argue anything you said. It's kind of boring. It's just generic, And this proves that Glenn Danzig is probably the best Rockstar director.
Oh, that's such a terrible thing to say, too. To have to admit.
Yeah.
I don't know, Fred Durst.
Yeah. The John Travolta movie.
Yeah, honestly, I like The Fan way better than this.
Yeah. I gotta go Dookie.
Oh man, Mike, did you get a chance to see this yet?
I have not, because almost
Good.
everything I've heard pretty much echoes what you're saying right now. So
Yeah.
I've been scared away. Like, it's probably something like if with I might get around to it on a random day if I have nothing else to watch. Because, like, I admit, like, when I was browsing, I think when it first hit Shudder and I saw like the cover,
You know what's going to happen after you watch it? You know what's going to happen after you watch it? You're going to go to your little Power Man 5000 shrine and be like, why? Why?
Shrine.
Why?
Oh, so good.
Power Man.
Yeah, this movie was just a mishmash mess of little segments here and there. Mike, I forget the name of the movie, but do you remember the anthology that we did a couple of years ago on Fresh Cuts that actually wasn't an anthology? Like, it was actually 3 separate shorts that they just spliced together. And the last segment was they turned into werewolves. Do you remember that terrible anthology? I want to say it was like At Night something come or something.
It comes at night?
Not It Comes at Night. Like
No.
something like At Night Wolves Come or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Does it have like a naked wolf coming on the cover?
Oh, God, no. That might have been interesting. Anyway, as much as I disliked that movie, I dislike this one more. So, yeah, unfortunately, Allegoria is a skip, in my opinion. If you like to torture yourself, then go right ahead. Like I said, it's on Shudder. At least it was a couple of months ago. I'm not sure if it still is, but hopefully if it is and you actually want to check it out, be my guest. But I'm definitely warning against watching this one.
Nice.
Yeah. Man. All right.
Man. Derek.
Yeah, what's up next, Derek?
Oh, I got a great one for you guys. Did you guys ever hear of a movie from 1977 called The Incredible Melted Man?
Hell yeah!
I just watched the fucking 4K of that bad the other
Holy
night.
shit, that got a 4K?
Yeah, Vinegar Syndrome.
Wow!
Yeah, and it looks magnificent, I have to say. For, like, and like I had 2 movies like when I got my package and that I would never think it would be in 4K. Flesh Eater and The Incredible Shrinking Man, and I both own them on 4K now. Vinegar Syndrome, they're doing some crazy things over there. I'm enjoying it. But The Incredible Melted Man is a story about a man named Steve that was on a spaceship to go into the rings of Saturn. But I guess with the stock footage of the solar flare was saying that they got mutated, and he was the only one that survived, and a day has gone by, and he's just in a hospital. And this is the greatest thing ever. He's just waking up, and his nurse comes in the room, and he's like just pissed at his face. He's like fucked up. And the nurse just runs in slow-mo, and it's the fucking funniest scene ever, because all this nurse is doing is running, and there's no one else in the... And then she just crashes into a thing of glass and keeps running, and she's like, ah! Oh, it's so bad, but great. Alex Rebar plays the Incredible Melted Man, and the effects are great because they're actually done by Rick Baker. So there's a lot of good like melting effects in the movie. Terrible acting though. A lot of the side characters have like great delivery. Like, my name is Dr. Ted Nelson. I am Dr. Ted Nelson. But it's fun. It's cheesy fun. It's weird because one of the actors in this movie is Jonathan Demme, future Academy Award-winning director. It's pretty fun though. Like, if you like Melton movies, it's about it's kind of like Man-Made Monster. It's like an updated version of that movie.
Yeah.
But more violent, has gore in it, has good oozy effects. That it's memorable. It's fun.
Yeah, I know I've seen it. It's easily been over 20 years, but I do remember watching it with like my cousins, I believe. And I remember having a good time with it. Now, at the same time, I was probably like 11 or 12 years old. so I haven't watched it since then. So I'd have to rewatch it to really give a good review of it. But I mean, I do remember it being pretty fun. And I know that the Riff Tracks guys have riffed that movie, and I've seen clips of that. And that, of course, is hysterical. I love Riff Tracks and Mystery Science Theater. So it goes without saying that if they cover a classic horror film, I'm going to watch it. I will watch it eventually. But yeah, if it has a 4K, shit, I might want to check that out.
Oh, yeah. Mike, have you ever seen The Incredible Milton Man?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, I know what I'm going to pick for my next show.
We should just have an incredible show, and it'll be like The Incredible Melting Man, The Incredible Shrinking Woman, The Incredible... I'm thinking of, The Incredible Hulk. That's kind of a horror movie in that it's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ed Norton.
All right, what do you got next, Mike?
All right, so another 2022 that I caught on Shudder that probably just won't fit into the fresh cut schedule. It's called Who Invited Them? Either of you seen or heard of this yet?
No.
Shit, I was gonna pop this on the other day, literally, and I decided to watch the first Orphan movie again. So I never got back to it.
All right.
Fuck you, Peter Sarsgaard. Fuck me down.
This one is, if you take a little bit of like funny games with I'm Just Fucking With You and kind of mix those together to make a movie that's, I'd say, not as good as either one of those, but what they're going for, that's kind of like it, where it's like, oh, we have some quirky neighbors that are at our house party. Oh, they're not leaving. Oh, they're going from quirky nice to quirky weird to quirky aggressive, that kind of thing. And then just, it leads to where it goes. But I liked it. It was a fun movie. Nothing that will be probably my, top 10 or even top 15 at the end of the year. But considering how weak Shudder kind of was earlier in the year with what they were throwing on there as supposed Shudder originals, I do think this is a lot better than those. I had fun with it. Small cast, small story, but I thought it was good. It kind of, I mentioned I'm Just Fucking With You being like a Hulu Into the Dark. This kind of feels like along those lines as far as like budget and scope of the story and all that. And, those Into the Dark movies, it was kind of like trading like good ones for bad ones.
Yeah.
So
I really did like I'm Just Fucking With You. I had a lot of fun with that movie. It's not a classic by any stretch, but I thought that was one of the better Into the Dark movies.
Yeah, it was. And this has similarities with the like antagonists where like they do a good job with the story and the dialogue where you're really trying to figure out like what exactly is going on with them. Like is the viewer being manipulated to think something, more so is going on than really is or not. And it goes some pretty interesting places by the end. So I'd recommend it.
Nice.
All right. Back to you, Venom.
All right. My last one for the day is actually, I'm actually going to bring an episode of a TV series in here. I'm not even bringing the whole series in here, even though I am 100% endorsing the series as a whole. So I want to start my review by basically saying if you are a fan of H.P. Lovecraft and writings in the Cthulhu mythos, then please stick around. I have a lot to say to you. If you're not a fan of H.P. Lovecraft and don't care about his film adaptations, then go ahead and skip 5 to 10 minutes. You're not going to like this movie at all because it is 100% a loving homage to Lovecraft. But anyway, the series is Love, Death, and Robots. This is a series on Netflix. They currently have 3 seasons available to watch. Season 4 is on the way. These are anywhere from 5 to 20-minute long episodes where, as the title of the series indicates, each segment is about either love, death, or robots, or any combination of the 3. This particular episode was from Season 3, the latest season. It's one of the last episodes of Season 3. It's Season 3, Episode 8. The name of this episode is In Vaulted Halls Entombed. If that's not fucking Lovecraftian as hell right from the start, I don't know what is. This episode it's only a 15-minute long short. The synopsis is as follows. Deep in the mountains of Afghanistan, a squad of Special Forces soldiers has the dangerous job of recovering a hostage held by terrorists. But the evil they encounter as they venture deep underground is far more ancient and terrifying. Yes, my friends, that is a really good description because they're obviously going to keep it as vague as possible. I absolutely adored this segment. It is CG, it is animated, it's 100% CGI. Love, Death, and Robots as a series is an animated series. I forgot to mention. Some of the episodes are hand-drawn, some of them are anime, some of them are CGI. This particular episode is CGI. And as the description states, we've got Special Forces soldiers going into this underground, not so much a bunker, but more like almost like a catacomb type thing. And, of course, they end up running into a Lovecraftian horror at the end, which I will not describe for the benefit of people who have not seen this episode yet. Like I said, if you have Netflix, go ahead and check out Love, Death, and Robots, Season 3, Episode 8, In Vaulted Halls Entombed. It blew me away. I mean, literally, when the episode was done, my mouth was agape. Now, mind you, this is coming from a Lovecraft stan. I absolutely fucking adore H.P. Lovecraft, the Cthulhu mythos, all of it. I'm not quite at Brian Salmon's level by any stretch, since he's an actual author and has actually written Cthulhu mythos stories. But the love is there. I absolutely love the mythos, and this movie, this episode of a TV series is goddamn spectacular. I'm not sure. Have you guys either watched this episode or any episodes of Love, Death, and Robots?
I have not.
Yeah, some of the episodes are quirky, like they go for comedy. There's this one particular series of episodes called The Three Robots. And it's basically these three irreverent robots that have like human mannerisms and, they talk shit to each other. They're basically exploring Earth, but after all humanity is gone. Like there's no people left. There's just like skeletons and shit still hanging around. I think they explained that humanity annihilated itself at some point. But that's a cool little series within Love, Death, and Robots. There's lots of anime. There's some cool anime. There's a cool episode where a girl kind of transfers her spirit into a monster specifically to fight to do pit fighting. Like literally people will transfer their consciousness into a monster and then they'll fight in a pit to the death. That was pretty fucking interesting to me in general. So yeah, like I said, I recommend the series. Not every episode is horror. As I've said, most of them are sci-fi and or comedy. One of my favorite episodes ever, I'm just going to give it a one-line description. All the yogurt in the world becomes sentient. That's all I'm going to say about that fucking episode. But if you've seen Love, Death, and Robots, you know what I'm talking about. So I recommend the series more from an entertainment standpoint than a horror standpoint. There are a couple of horror stories in here. There's actually a really cool one about an Indian goddess that turns really violent. That I forget the name of that one, but that one's also a cool episode. So yeah, Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix. If you haven't checked it out, check it out.
Yeah, I've seen the first season, and it's like...
Oh, so you saw The Three Robots, the first episode of The Three Robots.
Yeah.
With the cats.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I love it. And yeah, there's sequel episodes to that episode. It's pretty funny. But yeah,
dang.
Great series. Check it out if you haven't.
All right. What do you got up last, Derek?
I'm going to talk about a movie that... Actually, I kind of had the same experience that Venom had with this one when I was first seeing it, because the old DVD I had was like a budget DVD, and the movie looked like shit. But then this movie just got a Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome, and that's Scared to Death from 1980. Yeah, this one's pretty fun. It's pretty much about like this thing that's inside like the sewers of like, I think it's either LA or New York, or I forget. It's like a midtown big city area. There's murders going around. They find out this ex-cop is they asked him for it because he used to be like a good detective and shit like that. So they hire him to kind of find out what's killing all these women, and figures out it's this weird creature known as the Syngenor, or AKA the synthesized genetic organism. So this movie's a creature feature. This monster's kind of like it's kind of like a mixture of Alien and Predator in that sense, where it's like the look of the actual creature, the Syngenor, but it's kind of cool. Like it's like old school. Like this movie actually ironically came out the same year as Alligator. There's a lot of those stalking in the sewer scenes. Ooh, like an alligator. But yeah, it's fun. It's directed by William Malone, who
Malone. I know that guy.
Yeah, director of House on Haunted Hill remake.
Fear.com, a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it's his first movie. Big fan of this one. This actually has another movie about the Syngenors, just called Syngenor, that he didn't, but he got like credit for like the design of the look of the monster. That was pretty fun. That I actually made a second movie out of this movie, and yeah, this is fun. I recommend it. It's kind of the weird way I would describe it. It's kind of like a giallo, but then it's a creature feature at the same time. Because you have like the back and forth with like getting to know this ex-cop. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna write a novel. Yeah, I'm gonna hit this lady's car. Oh, I'm gonna fuck this lady later after I hit her car. Standard like old Italian fucking giallo setups to meeting characters. It's funny, like, but yeah, it's fun. I recommend it. And, it was good because, like I said, like the old DVD was like pan and scan with like dark, because a lot of the scenes in the sewer are dark, and the Blu-ray lightens them up a lot, and that's a good thing because some of those scenes I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching. It could be a bag of oranges. It could be a monster raping another girl. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I've seen this. I have no memory of it, but because I remember, the way I know Bill Malone is through my wife. My wife is a veterinary assistant, and Bill Malone used to be one of her clients. She worked at a veterinary clinic that was actually in a like kind of a posh part of LA. So they got she had clients like Charlize Theron, Wilford Brimley, like, a lot of like Hollywood actors would bring their pets to this particular hospital. And she told me that Bill Malone was a client. And this was only a few years after Fear.com had come out. And I did enjoy Fear.com for what it was. It's not a cinematic classic by any stretch. It kind of reminds people of The Ring, really. It has a lot of the same elements of The Ring. But I do remember enjoying it. I remember giving her the DVD, the DVD at the time, for him to sign it. And she basically called me one day and said, hey, he's here and he'd love to meet you. And I was like, really? So I went, we talked. I know he mentioned Scared to Death. I basically said the same thing to him that day that I'm saying now, that I know I saw it, but I don't have a memory of it. But I love Fear.com. So there you go. That's my Bill Malone story.
Yeah, because the movie he did after Scared to Death was, like the Alien ripoff Creature from '85.
Creature, yep.
Yeah, which is pretty fucking awesome because it has, out of nowhere, like this weird rapey performance by Klaus Kinski.
Aren't all his performances rapey?
Yeah, but it's like extra rapey because he's like legitimately grabbing like girls' asses in the movie.
He played the rapiest vampire ever.
Always.
God.
Like even when he's eating a cheeseburger in the movie, he's like just looks like he's raping it.
Oh God. Oh, that's gross.
We have I don't know. That might be a future review, Creature.
I'm always down if it got a Blu-ray release and actually looks good. Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, because actually Vinegar Syndrome actually put both this and Creature out, Scared to Death.
Very cool.
Like I said, they're doing the Lord's work.
They kind of are, man. They're resurrecting all these creature features that I had completely forgotten about, and now I'm interested in spending more of my money. So yeah,
so Venom's next package is going to be Melton Man 4K Blu-rays of Scared to Death and Creature.
I think I still might have my Creature DVD floating around, like just the disc. Like back in the day, I didn't keep cases. I do now. Obviously, I'm like an actual collector now. But yeah, I've got like CD booklets just filled with movies, and I'm pretty sure Creature's in there.
Oh, I feel you there. I have a few of those, like those.
Hey man, when you're living in college, or when you're going to college and living with like 5 other people, you don't have the luxury of having a rack of hundreds of movies, So you kind of got to make do. And I do regret it because a lot of those DVDs cases that I dumped they never got a Blu-ray release. Though I still have the discs, which is nice. I mean, I can still watch the movie, but yeah, it's not like anybody else. It's not like I'll ever make any money off them or anything if they become collector's items.
Who wants my DVD of Chatterbox?
There you go. All right, Mike, what's your last one?
All right, my last one is sort of a show that's in progress because they only release an episode weekly, and currently there are 2 episodes up on Shudder, and this is the 101 Scariest Movie Moments in Film, I think it's called. And I believe it's from the same production as Cursed Films, but I could be wrong. But it feels like similar style. And I don't know. I mean, there's not much to say because it's in essence, a clip show. So people, they play the clip. People talk about why it's great, what they love about it, and then they move on to the next one. Now, what I will say is I do kind of appreciate the way they're doing it in kind of like each episode there's 10 picks. And if anyone's familiar with like NFL Network, when they do like the top 100, whatever, running backs drafted second in the draft or something, they usually format their show like that as well, with like 10 at a time before the next episode. I do kind of like it because sitting down to watch like all 100 at once, you could do it. I'm not saying you can't carve out like a few hours or more, but it's kind of nice to get like the 45 minutes to just under an hour. You get that once a week, get your 10 picks out, and you kind of get to sit and think about those and stew on them. And hey, if there's something mentioned that you're not familiar with or want to revisit, you got your list there. You don't run there's nothing wrong with like the 3 to 4 hours documents watching all at once, but I know sometimes you can get fatigued, like, at 2.5 hours in, you're like, okay, I need to pause this and take a break or whatever. But this one, it goes by really quick. So I'm looking forward to like the rest of the season. Have either of you guys seen any of the episodes yet?
No.
I've watched the first one. I haven't watched the second one yet. I think they're doing more than 10 per episode, though, because the first episode did 101 through 89. Because I haven't watched the second one yet.
Maybe the first one was 11, because since they did 101 and not 100, they had to like do an extra one in the first episode.
Well, they did 12. I think 12 total was what they did. They did 101 to 89 because they did do number 89 in the first one.
Interesting.
Not that it matters. Obviously, they're putting out an episode a week until Halloween, so But yeah, I totally agree with you. I tend to like movies like this. These little clip show things. I mean, Terror in the Aisles is one of my favorite movies ever, and that's all it is a clip show. It's basically Donald Pleasance and Nancy Allen just setting up all these different horror movie clips and watching them. And this
is the weirdest
period
ever.
What's that?
This picture in Donald Pleasance and Nancy Allen just hanging out with each other.
They're actually not in any scene together, which is interesting. Like, they're both in the same theater, but they're not sitting next to each other. So, like, the wraparound, if you will, is basically, Donald Pleasance and Nancy Allen in a theater watching a horror movie. And then, the camera will come back to one of them and they'll set up the next clip, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, that one actually played in theaters. I remember seeing that in theaters back in like 83 or 84. I absolutely love that movie. If you get, I don't even know if it's still available anymore, but if you buy the original Blu-ray release of Halloween 2, of the original Halloween 2, the whole movie Tales from the Terror in the Aisles. I'm sorry. I hope I said that right the first time. Terror in the Aisles is the name of the film. And it was a special feature on the Halloween 2 Blu-ray, which is pretty damn awesome. But now you can get it by itself. It did finally get its own Blu-ray release.
Yeah, from Scream Factory,
There you go. But yeah, I mean, I'm right there with Mike. I do like stuff like this because, sometimes, you don't want to watch an entire movie. You just want to watch the best parts of a movie. So why not? Just watch clip shows.
Hey, I get all those trailer compilations and shit.
Exactly. Trailers from hell and shit like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, throw one of those on in the background.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the perfect type of show to throw on in the background, especially working from home, like to where the more familiar you are with whatever movie they're talking about, you almost don't even need to look at the screen to know exactly like the scene or the scariest moment that they're talking about, because you've probably seen it so many times that it's already playing in your head as they're talking about it. And then every once in a while when they bring up something that you're less familiar with, then you'll kind of look. And I actually have a notepad where I'll compile whenever I watch these types of docs where they cover a lot of films. I'll just jot down a list of movies that like I haven't seen or to rewatch based on how they're talked about in the documentary. So it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what Terror in the Isles was for me when I first saw it, because I didn't recognize half the clips in it the first time I saw it when I saw it in theaters. I forget the name of the movie, but the one with Wings Hauser, where he's like a psychopath.
That's like every movie.
Yeah, that's valid. I forget the name of it, but like no, I don't think it was that. He has a cowboy hat and he's chasing a chick through most of the movie. I can't remember the damn name of it. But anyway, the point is there were clips of that in Terror in the Isles. I had never seen the film before, so I actually sought it out, and it was pretty good. Not good enough to remember the title, apparently, but I do remember it being pretty good.
I feel like it's Vice Squad.
Actually, that might be it. That does sound familiar, because I remember it having kind of like a cop title.
Yeah.
That seems, and that was what, 82?
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that is the movie. Yeah, because there's clips. Yeah, a single mother prostitute. Yeah, that's it. It is Vice Squad. Sorry. Yeah, it's absolutely Vice Squad. And like I said, it's a movie that I avoided because of the title. Because like I said, Vice Squad sounds like a police procedural, which I was never into in the 80s. But then, because I saw those clips of him absolutely torturing that woman, I went out and saw the movie. And yeah, I ended up really liking it. So yes. 101 horror movie moments. Watch it. No reason not to. It's awesome. It's Halloween. Perfect time.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Me too.
Yeah, I'll watch episode 2 one of these days. I've just been busy with movie watches.
All right. So that's going to wrap up the What We Watch segment, and we can move right into news if we have any. Do we have any news? Because the only news I had written down would have been more relevant probably if we recorded a month ago, which would have been that, hey, there's 2 movies that are kind of doing the switcheroo, because Evil Dead Rise looks like it is going to get a theatrical release now, and Halloween Ends is getting the same day streaming after what's his name said that he would not do that for Halloween Ends. But I guess that he reversed that. Now do you think he reversed that because it's no good? Because why?
No, not at all. Because it's still coming out in theaters. We're still getting a theatrical release. It's also coming out same day on Paramount or Peacock, one of those.
They'll probably be like, if you didn't like the last one that much, you could just watch it on Peacock.
That's true. I mean, it's valid. I mean, it's getting more eyes on the movie. That if you only put it in theaters based on the strength of Halloween Kills, I don't think it's going to make a shitload of money. It's definitely not going to make as much as Halloween 2018. So I mean, ultimately, it's not like they're not making money. Like the streaming service that's going to provide the movie has to pay for the rights for that movie.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're still going to get their money.
Well, it's funny because
not get as much. But.
I think it's like you have to have Peacock probably Premium or whatever the hell they call their version of it, and I
Peacock
don't.
Plus.
So the funny thing for me is like it would actually cost me more to watch it at home than to go to the theater because I have the Regal pass.
Exactly.
So
not that I would watch it at home anyway. I mean, anytime these movies get same day releases, I'm at the theater. I don't care. I do love my house. Don't get me wrong. I love my big 4K TV, blah, blah, blah. But nothing will ever replace the theater experience for me. I absolutely adore it.
Yeah.
I will always go to the theater. Something about those sticky floors and, sitting next to people that haven't bathed in days. Nothing can replace that.
Yeah, especially because did I tell you that fucking actually later this month, fucking Fabio Frizzi's playing a whole concert at the Coolidge Theater?
I'm going.
Oh shit!
I am going to see Goblin at the Hollywood Palladium. I'm so excited. It's the same place that I saw John Carpenter. when he played live.
And it's fucking awesome because they're playing Zombie after.
Yep.
It's fucking great. I can't.
Is the show you're going to, Venom, the one where they're doing like the entire Suspiria soundtrack?
I think so.
Because that's the flyer I saw for. I'm assuming it's the same tour because they're coming up here to, I think, Oakland, either Oakland or San Francisco.
La 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 la.
And yeah, on the banner for it says, because it's like, I don't know if it's like the 45th anniversary or 50th.
You'll know they'll have encore songs because there's only like 9 songs from Suspiria.
Yeah, they're just going to repeat like. Well, I don't know.
I mean, they got to do a lot of their stuff. They'll do Deep Red and Tenebrae. Maybe not the whole scores, but selected pieces from each.
Yeah.
Well, because I think when they did the Deep Red tour, they actually had the movie playing in the background. It would like do the score live with the movie playing. So
that's fucking awesome.
They might be doing that with Suspiria this time. I'm not 100% sure. But
I'm looking at the event page. I don't see anything about them doing Suspiria. I mean, it doesn't say anything about what they're performing. Just, so it's November 27th out here. Oh, it's actually at the Palace Theater. I'm sorry, not the Palladium. But, the Palace Theater is actually kind of nicer, but not as big as the Palladium. But either way, I will be at Goblin. What is that? That's the Sunday before Thanksgiving for me.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's...
I'll report back.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, I'm sure your report's going to be like, oh my God, that was fucking awesome.
Like I said, Deep Red is literally one of my favorite horror scores, period, ever. I fucking love Deep Red. And if they play the main theme of Deep Red, I'm just going to come right in my pants. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good times.
Where else would you?
Well, it is L.A.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Where's Elijah Wood?
What other news we got? Do you guys got anything? Some GTA 6 stuff leaked.
Oh, I didn't even notice. I was watching. I mean, I watched the Sony whatever their presentation was this week.
Showcase, they call it. Yeah.
Yeah, State of Play. That was it. State of Play. And I mean, the only thing I really much cared about is there's actually another samurai game coming out. Rise of the Ronin. That's it. Rise of the Ronin. And if you're interested in action, just kind of hack and slash action, check out the trailer for this game. I think it looks it like Ghost of Tsushima from a couple of years ago is a spectacular game. This one looks like that, but with way nicer graphics.
Oh, wow.
It just looks gorgeous. So, yeah, I'm excited for that one. There's not really any horror games that I'm anticipating.
Yeah, nothing really.
Evil, I mean, I know Resident Evil Village.
The Callisto Protocol looks good.
What's that?
Isn't it like the Callisto Protocol? It almost looks like another Dead Space.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same developers, so yeah, it's probably going to be a Dead Space type game, which is fine because I fucking love Dead Space, and I'm very upset that we haven't gotten one in over 10 years. So yeah,
they're doing the HD remaster of it.
I mean, I've played the first 2 Dead Space games ad nauseum. I mean, I beat them over like 10 times each. I fucking love those games. The third one wasn't nearly as good, because it wasn't spacey as the first 2. I know that sounds stupid. I'm trying to think of the right term, but the third one actually takes place on a planet, and it's an ice planet. So you're basically walking around constant snowstorms and everything else. And
it's like the episode of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, you might go that far, yeah. And I just didn't find it as fun as the first 2. But I mean, Dead Space 2 is one of my favorite games ever, period. Fucking love it. So yeah, I'm excited. I guess I'm mildly excited for that one, but yeah. Most of what I'm waiting for isn't horror. I mean, God of War Ragnarok is on like near the top of my list.
Hell yeah. That shit looks like it's going to be amazing.
And I just 100%ed the first game. Like, I had beaten it back in 2018 when it first came out, but I decided to play it again literally last month just to kind of get ready for Ragnarok in November. And I ended up just getting so addicted that I literally just 100%ed the game. I beat every Valkyrie. I found every lore tablet. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Do you know approximately how long the campaign, like if you're just going straight through the story, How many hours?
Of 2018.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still looking at about 13, 15 hours.
Okay, because it's free
huge
on
game.
premium right now, so I'm like, shoot, I should get it and play it because all the other God of War games I loved. So
yeah, I mean, even for a 4-year-old game, it still looks and plays spectacular. Like if it came out this year, it would probably be my game of the year. It's that good. So I'm very excited for Ragnarok, and Ragnarok will be true 4K and 60 frames a second and all that happy stuff. So yeah. That'll be good.
Yeah. And Legend of Zelda for life.
I'm down. Hey, Legend of Zelda, absolutely. I am.
Yeah, they got a new. They did the. Do you see the teaser?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
are you guys prepping any 31 for 31 for October?
I'm retired. I just watch whatever I want.
Yeah, I usually do that. This year, for the first time, what I did was I just made a list of the movies I want to watch that month. Not like the exact day, like I'm going to watch this on the first, this on the second.
Is Porno Holocaust one of them?
What's that?
Is Porno Holocaust one of them?
No, but Cannibal Holocaust is number one. Because this year I've decided to do all found footage. So this spooky season is all found footage. So of course I'm going to start with the granddaddy of them all, with Cannibal Holocaust, and go from there.
Oh hell yeah!
And I just picked up that. Or wait, did I just pick it up, or did Derek buy it for me? I forget. So I just got that special edition Blu-ray. You know, that big package. I forget if somebody bought it for me, or I think somebody got it for me off my wish list.
What was it?
Cannibal Holocaust. The good edition, the fancy one.
No, I didn't get that one for you, but
okay.
That's good. That's great.
Somebody got it for me, because sometimes people will buy me shit off my wish list and not put name on it. So it's like, whatever. Yeah. I got a random fan. Awesome.
I wish I had random fans.
Yeah, that's true too.
I gotta buy Michael something. I owe him a birthday present.
I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing yet, but I know it's going to involve, at least partially, because I would just make it the theme, but I don't have 31 to do it with, is all the 4Ks I've bought that I just haven't opened and watched yet. So
that's funny, because I counted my horror 4Ks as well. I had that idea as well. It's like, let's do a 4K horror, but I think I only have 21, so
there's not a lot of 4Ks yet.
Not good ones, anyway. I mean,
besides like anything Scream Factory, like Candyman and shit like that, I gotta pick up still.
Yeah, see, if I extended to include Blu-rays, but only Blu-rays that are like sitting on my shelf that I haven't opened, I can probably get to 31. But even then, it's going to be close, because most Blu-rays I have were bought long enough ago that I would have opened them and watched them.
You should just do 31 movies that Derek picks for you to watch.
He'll blow his head off halfway.
I want October to be fun, Derek.
What? You don't like Things and Fungicide? What are you talking about?
Derek knows some dark ass shit out there.
Oh, Derek finds all the classics.
Some of them are fun, but Derek can find the dark ones.
They're almost all fun. It's just some of them are terrible. Like Fungicide is legit terrible, but it's funny as hell.
Yeah, the mushroom stick fighting.
Yes.
Are you guys?
Things is one of those movies that's just hard to watch. Like I don't know what that.
Yeah, that's an endurance test.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. It is. If you can get through that, you're a fucking horror superstar.
Something I didn't bring up on the what we watched that I just remembered, only because it's a movie that's been talked about a lot. But I did manage to get to the theater to see the Jaws anniversary, and I did the 3D one. Did you do the IMAX one?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I thought the 3D was really well done. Like any scene, I think it was the best for scenes that took place in the ocean, because the way the 3D was formatted, it almost looked like the ocean was like coming off of the screen, like so you were like in the water too. And it's Jaws, so of course excellent movie, but adding for a movie that came out so long ago that I've seen so many times, the fact that I can get like almost a new experience out of it so many years later is just awesome. It's great. I mean, even if I just went to the theater to see standard Jaws the way it was originally made, that still would have been awesome because it's Jaws. But
still one of the greatest movies ever made. Exactly.
Yeah, it was like when I saw fucking Evil Dead last year. It was like fucking, this is great.
Yeah, when I saw Suspiria 4K a couple of years ago at a theater, that was pretty fucking awesome. Yeah, it was so loud. Oh, the audio was so loud. I loved it.
I do plan on going to see the Dawn of the Dead in 3D as well.
Guaranteed. Are you kidding? My favorite zombie movie ever. Damn right, I'm going to be there. We did get the IMAX trailer for Dawn. Obviously, not the 3D one. 3D, like I said, I like 3D. It's okay. It's not something that I look at as vital. Like, I think the IMAX presentation was fucking spectacular. In IMAX, I mean, Bruce never looked so fucking big. I absolutely loved it. And the Dawn of the Dead trailer in IMAX was spectacular too. So yeah.
Hell yeah, when the music kicks on and then the narration, it's just like as if I'm not already gonna see it, guys, and you're just making it even sweeter.
Exactly.
I think it's like October 28th through Halloween. So I'm gonna I think the 28th is a Thursday or a Friday. So I'm gonna try to get it in on like first night.
Exactly. Yep.
Exactly there, Michael.
Yeah. So that's it for that probably. As far as burning questions segment, Venom, did you find a list for us to go over?
I did not find a list, but I did, because of one of the films that we're reviewing today, I did kind of have something that I thought could turn into an interesting conversation, and that is American remakes of foreign horror films. We haven't actually announced the movies that we're doing yet today, but I'm sure, if you saw the banner on the link, you already realized that we're doing Goodnight Mommy as one of our reviews today. And literally this past week, the American remake of Goodnight Mommy came out. Now, I have not seen it yet, so I'm not going to try to bash it or anything like that. My thought is we get a lot of American remakes of foreign horror films very soon after they come out. Like, you'll see them like within a couple of years, maybe within 10 years. You might get that American remake. We've seen it multiple times. I mean, we're getting a Train to Busan American remake later
New York.
Next year. Yeah, Train to New York. Yeah, how fucking original. Anyway, the point is that I personally, and I don't want to speak for either of my co-hosts or any of our listeners, but I personally think that every time an American remake is made of a foreign horror film, it always pales in comparison to the original. So I kind of wanted to get like your guys' take on that. Like, do you have any examples of American horror remakes of foreign films that are actually, I don't even want to say watchable, comparable. Let's say comparable to the original. And then the overall why, like, why can't Americans, reproduce the magic that these foreign filmmakers did? So, yeah, anybody who wants to chime in, come on in.
Yeah, I would say no, they're not. Well, I'd say there's cases where they aren't bad movies, the remakes I'm specifically stating, but most of the time when I do watch them, I just come away with thinking, what was the point of even making it in the first place? A lot of them, it's like they make these incremental changes that just make the movie less effective or less interesting to me. I don't understand why people just aren't interested in watching the originals to begin with. I mean, I guess subtitles are still like too much for some people. I don't get it. I also don't like the fact that a lot of times with foreign movies, there is specific cultural aspects that get lost in trying to translate it into English language versions that are in the movie as story points for specific reasons. And when you remove them or try to modify them, it doesn't come across the same with, American storytelling. Like a good example is like Dark Water, the original. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think the American remake of Dark Water is a horrible movie, but a big aspect of the original to me was dictated because of how the culture kind of views like a divorced woman in her, I think 30s is what the character was, kind of how society comes down on them as a failure. It's like all their fault. And you don't really get that same, like, obviously there probably is like a portion of Americans that might think that, but it's not like the same societal norms. And, just little aspects like that really give a nuanced story with its writing that you lose. And that's often why American remakes are seen as kind of bland or just kind of generic, even when they're not bad. And yeah. And then you have like the style where it's like the American remakes almost go beat for beat with the original ones. And it's like, well, what's the point? What do I care? Like, it's almost like movie karaoke because you're just like doing the same thing but putting American language in it.
I mean, most of these remakes aren't nearly as egregious as like the Vince Vaughn Psycho remake that was literally an attempt at a shot-for-shot remake. But I know some people like that movie. I fucking can't stand that movie. The original Psycho is one of my favorite movies of all time, and yeah, that movie was just a travesty to me.
I
know
remember
it has
seeing
fans.
that one. Yeah, I remember seeing that one in the theater, and like halfway through, people were just laughing. Like, what the hell is going on here?
Exactly, but there's other, obviously, we run down the list of movies like The Ring, Martyrs, Inside, Let the Right One In, and Let Me In, movies like that. It's like I'm just wondering, like, why? First of all, since we have such diminishing returns almost regularly with these American remakes, why do we even get them? And sadly, Mike's point is probably correct. People just don't like subtitles. And whenever I hear an American movie fan say that, I literally just want to slap them in the mouth. It's like, Jesus Christ, you went to school to learn how to read. Are you telling me that reading is that much of an issue? Like, people will say stupid shit like, well, when I'm looking at the words, I can't look at the screen, so I might miss something. No, you idiot. That's not how eyes work. You can still fucking see what's on screen when you're reading the subtitles at the bottom. Doesn't fucking make sense. But anyway, it's just one of those things that if American filmmakers think that there is a market there, then obviously they're going to do it. If these movies make money, they're going to keep coming. The money is the ruler of everything, But I don't understand why we continue to get them. Like I said, we're getting Goodnight Mommy, which we haven't watched yet. Like I said, don't know if we're going to, but we'll see. And then we got Trained in New York coming next year. It just, I don't understand why. Like, why is it so hard for an American filmmaker to make a fucking original movie? Like, what's the end game? You're obviously not going to trump the original. I'm only going by history with that because it's yet to happen. I mean, if somebody wants to disagree with me and tell me that there is an American remake out there that's better than its foreign original, I would love to have a conversation with you, because I know people are going to come at me with stuff like The Ring and maybe even The Grudge. And no, my friends, I'm sorry. The originals, they're so much creepier, so much more unnerving. Yeah, the American versions are crisper, cleaner. You might even say they have better acting because they usually have bigger name actors in them, like a Naomi Watts in The Ring or whatever, something like that. But I don't know, man. It's so hard to reproduce the feel of that original, especially when you're making, this beautiful, glossy, overproduced American theatrical film. It just, you're never going to be able to redo that, the aesthetic that they came up with the first time. Dark Water is actually a great example because the original Dark Water is a dirty, gritty little movie. Mm-hmm. It's a gross little movie, and the color correction on that movie even implies that it's a gross, dirty little movie. I mean, Dark Water, obviously. There is a theme there. And then they go and they make the American one, which is, like I said, all glossy and nice looking. It's still pretty dark, don't get me wrong. I mean, they still have a lot of dark scenes in there to try to match up with the original, but it pales.
John C. Reilly.
Oh, God, John C. Reilly. Don't remind me. Anyway, Derek, you got an opinion on this one?
It's tough because there's actually... Okay, I'm 50-50 because there's a few of them I do enjoy a lot when I've first seen them. I haven't revisited them since then, but let's just say I thought they were pretty great for what they were, But then there's it's like back in when we're getting fucking remakes to like Shudder and shit. That's when I'm like, okay, now you're fucking just digging in the fucking and ruining fucking classics because, I'm like that the original Shudder is one of my favorite horror movies ever. It scared the fucking living shit out of me the first time I seen that movie.
Great movie.
And then they fucking do like a fucking paint by numbers Connect 4 version of that with fucking Pacey from Dawson's Creek. It's like some of them get like they just started marketing them in paint by numbers. Like, hey, let's just make it more simple, deaf and dumb.
No, that's true too. I felt that with the American The Eye remake, that like they dubbed that down. I felt like, granted, it's been a long ass time since I've seen it. I only saw it the one time in theaters, but I remember walking out of the theater thinking, yeah, that was just kind of a dubbed down version of the original. Like, again, it didn't feel nearly as grimy and dirty, even though some of the places that she was going to in the movie were grimy and dirty. The film didn't come off that way. Another example is One Missed Call. I love One Missed Call. I think that original One Missed Call movie is great.
Yeah,
that American remake, I wouldn't, calling it dog shit is a compliment. Like, I don't even know if I could say dog shit. Like, that was just fucking awful. That was just one of the worst. I mean, I still say The Fog is the worst horror remake I've ever seen. And I will admit, I haven't seen every one by any stretch, but The Fog was just fucking awful. And One Missed Call was almost as bad. I think because The Fog was a big budget American film, One Missed Call was an American theatrical release, but it was a lot lower budget. It wasn't this big grand release. So I don't know.
Do you think one? I was gonna say, do you think one? There's a certain laziness to it. Like, oh look, there's this hit. Because sometimes I always wonder, like, if it's a big hit overseas, like, why don't you just give it an American release? Like, let's see how it could perform here. And then two, I sometimes wonder if like Hollywood studios think, hey, here's a good movie and a good story, but we don't trust American audiences to go see something that if they don't relate enough to like foreign actors on the screen. We need to like make them Americans because Americans want to see Americans and an American story, quote unquote, an American story. Maybe they just don't trust the audiences because I don't see why you wouldn't release a great movie in America, because our movies go overseas and do wonderful numbers, sometimes even better numbers overseas. Oh, yeah. Now, I would say, I guess the difference is, American film industry is probably the hub of film in general. Not that other countries don't put out tons of films and don't have their huge industries themselves, but, sure. So maybe that's why the same is not.
All right. Well, listeners, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. If you want to chime in on Facebook or Twitter, hit us up and let me know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a movie out there that I'm not thinking of that actually was.
The Shaft.
Oh, God. And like I said, there are a lot that I haven't seen just because I kind of just refuse to, because I don't see the value in them. I don't see the value in watching an American remake of a horror film that I already love. The example that I always go with is Let the Right One In. Let the Right One In is literally my favorite vampire movie ever. I fucking adore that movie. I love every second of it. It's not hyperbole when I say it is my favorite vampire movie ever. I have never seen Let Me In. I've had multiple people say that it is watchable. Some people actually say it's good. Bo Ransdell from The Dark Parade really was trying to get me to watch it hard because we reviewed Let the Right One In on The Dark Parade. And he, I had never seen the remake, and he tried to tell me, oh, you need to watch it. It's actually pretty good. But again, the statement that I always fall back on that other people say is, well, it's good, but it's not as good as the original. So my question is, why do I want to watch a remake of a movie that's only 3 years old if it's not better? Like I said, I understand the aversion to subtitles, but I don't have that aversion. when I watch a movie, I want to see it in its original language. That's the only way it's going to make sense to me. Every time I watch it. Uh-huh.
Oh, I was just gonna say I've carried that same opinion for a long time now, and I've tried to communicate to people like, why do I want to see a decent version of something great when the great thing's out there? If Let Me In was made, if there was no Let the Right One In, and someone came up with the same story, yeah, I'd watch it. But I'm like, there's already something great out there. I don't need to see a lesser version. I get nothing out of it. Now, I'm not even like outright refusing to ever watch it. It's just that I've never sat down and been like, okay, what do I want to watch? Oh, that's what there's just always something else I'd rather watch.
Like I'm not going to watch Let the Right One In unless I have to for a show. I'm not against watching it, mind you. I have no reason to watch it because I love Let the Right One In. So, and I also am not a fan of Chloe Grace Moretz, by the way. I don't like her at all.
But I also think that, I also think Let the Right One In is one of the most egregious examples of this too, because other than the fact that it's in a foreign language, I don't think there's too much cultural in it that is like weird or like strange to like Americans, right? It's not. It takes place in a small like village during winter, but other than that, I mean, there's nothing that I like as an American myself. Obviously, I guess I didn't watch it thinking, gee, I don't understand what they're doing here, or I don't understand why the town people are doing it. Like, there is none of that. It's very relatable to me in the way what the story is.
Besides Oscar's hair.
Oscar. Hey, I love Oscar's hair. It works for him. I would never wear it, but all right, folks. So I think that's going to be it for our burning question this week. As I've already said, if you have an opinion, by all means, chime in. And if you think we're wrong, by all means, let us know why we're wrong. I'd love to hear it. I guess we're going to go ahead and take a break now, right, gentlemen? And when we get back, we're going to take a look at my picks for this episode.
Eyes without a face.
And there you go.
Billy Idol's pick.
Yes, we have a Billy Idol music video that we'll be looking at called Eyes Without a Face. And then, as I already mentioned, we'll be looking at 2014's Goodnight Mommy out of Austria. So we'll be right back, folks.
I think it was unintentional timing, too. That
very unintentional. I didn't know until about a week and a half ago that Goodnight Mommy was getting a remake.
It's just our scheduling.
Yeah,
and of course it releases a week before we record this episode.
Exactly, so we can't even chime in on whether we liked it or not. I mean, I don't think there's anything coming out in theaters this week, so who knows? It might be the next Fresh Cuts movie, but we'll have to see.
Why, you're not going to see Smile?
That's next week, September 30th.
Oh.
Yeah, this week
Smile.
I don't think there's anything opening. Yeah, I would imagine we'll do Smile. I mean, it looks stupid as hell, but it's a big theatrical release, and we tend to kind of prioritize those on Fresh Cuts. So, yeah, I see us doing Smile.
Yeah, that'd be great if the movie ends with that song from, like, when Eddie enters Toontown. Smile, oh, so smile.
No, don't use that song. I love that song. Don't ruin it.
Hi, Eddie. Hi, Eddie.
Hi, Eddie. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and take a break. We'll be right back, so don't go anywhere.
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack. Promise to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, your sweet tooth. So visit our refreshment center now. Let's go! And now, on with the show.
Welcome back, folks. In this episode, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about some plastic surgery debacles. Our first film this week is 1960's Eyes Without a Face. It does have an original French title, but I am not even going to attempt to say it because I don't know French to save my life. This is, of course, as I mentioned, from 1960. We're looking at a 90-minute runtime. Its original release, October 24th, 1962 in America. It's American release, so it got a Halloween release for 1962. So that's kind of poignant. But it did get released in France for the first time in 1960. Our synopsis is as follows. A surgeon causes an accident which leaves his daughter disfigured and goes to extreme lengths to give her a new face. This film is directed by Georges Franju. It is written by some French guys whose names I'm not going to attempt to pronounce, and it stars some French people whose names I'm not going to attempt to pronounce. I don't want to hack up anybody's names. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one. This was a first-time watch for me. I have never seen this film before, always heard great things about it. Seems like 1960 was a really good year for horror between stuff like Psycho and Peeping Tom and now Eyes Without a Face. Seems like 1960 was a pretty solid year throughout the world for horror. With this being my first time watch, I kind of expected, where the movie was going. I mean, obviously in 2022, this isn't going to be the most original story ever. Doctor causes an accident, which, makes his daughter's face be disfigured, and he's basically, and this is a horror film, so I don't think it's much of a surprise to anybody when I say that the doctor is, of course, kidnapping women, taking them against their will, peeling their face off, and attempting to graft it onto his daughter's face, with varying degrees of results, mostly bad results. But yeah, this is a film that probably played really well in 1960. I mean, there's a surgery scene in here where, the effects aren't great for 2022, but I could imagine a 1960 French audience watching this in a theater and just being completely horrified, because they're literally showing the doctor peel off this woman's face. First he cuts it. The problem is that it's very obvious a false face on top of the actress's real face. Whereas if it was a newer movie, they'd correct that a little bit and make it look like, really gnarly. But I thought this was a really compelling story. I thought this was a fun might be a stretch. It was a compelling watch. I got to say, the movie opens up with calliope music, and anybody that knows calliope music, that's that creepy kind of circus music that you hear playing. Anytime a horror movie opens with calliope music, I'm instantly creeped out. Something about that style of music just fucking creeps me out. And then we're introduced to this girl with this mask, a mask which in and of itself is not terrifying. It's basically just a blank female face. But something about her wearing that mask and walking around that house it absolutely works for me. It's very unnerving. You get some good tension throughout. Obviously, as I mentioned, we get multiple attempts at replacing this girl's face. One of the kind of, I don't want to say, well, it is if this movie was 2022, this would be kind of an unforgivable thing. But the fact that the first time the doctor replaces his daughter's face with someone else's face, and then she removes her mask, and her face is absolutely perfect. No scars around the eyes, no scars under the neck. And she literally looks like herself. Like, if you take a face off someone else and put it on, your daughter, she's not going to look like your daughter anymore. She's going to look like the other girl. But in this movie, magically, she goes back to her original good looks. And then we get, various horror set pieces and things that go wrong from there, with an ultimate, climax, which I thought was a pretty satisfying ending. It kind of leaves it up to interpretation a little bit as to what ends up happening to our protagonist. Young, what's her name? Louise, I believe her name is. Yeah. And then Edna Gruber, right, is the name of the girl. That she's the first girl that gets kidnapped and has her face peeled off and everything else. So blah, blah, blah. So like I said, if I'd have seen this, sometime within like maybe the first 10 years that it was out, I probably would have liked it a lot. It definitely looks like it probably disturbed some audiences. I mean, like I said, it's considered a horror classic. A lot of people talk about it. AMC, regards this movie very high on their all-time list of horror films. So, this was a pretty good film. Definitely something I would recommend. Definitely more on the artistic side. You're not getting a lot of blood, gore, stalking or any majorly tense scenes. It's just really more about the atmosphere and just the tension within that house between the doctor, his daughter, the doctor's assistant, all of that. So I definitely recommend the film. And now I'm going to bring in Derek. Derek, was this a first-time watch for you, and what did you think of it?
This is actually like a fifth-time watch for me, this movie. Yeah, I heard of this movie a while back. I never actually seen it or heard of it before, like, following, like, certain people on Facebook and stuff, and people posting about it, like, the groups. I'm like, oh, this looks cool. So I watched it, and, like, first thing with the music, I'm like, damn, now I know where the Puppet Master theme came from. Yeah, but, it's kind of interesting, like, there's movies, like, that came after this one, like, The Skin I Live In, and, like, fucking, like, any Jess Franco, Dr. Orloff movie, like, yeah, you can tell that like, yeah, this is the movie that, like, those movies, without this movie, we wouldn't have those movies,
Mm-hmm.
And but a thing on what you were saying about how to play in France, this movie actually bombed when it first came out, both in the States and in France. And weird double feature, because, this is actually released as a double feature with the movie The Manster.
Oh, God, was it?
Imagine, like, I want to
The Manster?
Yep.
Yeah, which is like a Japanese U.S. co-production. It's about like a Jekyll and Hyde guy with like two heads. It's weird. It's very weird. But yeah, it's an interesting double feature, to say the least. But yeah, I like this movie a lot. Pierre Biol, who's one of the writers of the screenplay, he also, like, wrote Hitchcock's Vertigo. So yeah, a few years before this one, and also Diabolique a few years before this one.
Mm-hmm.
So, it has, like, that similar structure. But there's a weird thing, like, the camera movements in this film. It's very, like, German expressionism. Maybe, like, the way that I would kind of describe the way the camera is shot.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that too, yeah.
Yeah, it's just elegant and beautiful. Actually, weirdly enough, both movies kind of have, like, a Del Toro feel to them.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the next one, it's like, hey, those are Del Toro cockroaches. But anyways. But, yeah, I enjoy this movie a lot. I think it's fantastic, actually. I really fucking enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great ride. It's a beautiful film. Like I was watching it, I was like, man, this movie's good. Looks great, too, because I actually own the Criterion Blu-ray release of this movie. And that's fucking... I'm going to guess that the HBO Max stream is also the same HD master. So, yeah, watch this movie, whether you buy it or just stream it on HBO Max. It's worth a watch. Especially if you like black and white films.
Oh, yeah. I mean, literally a few minutes into the movie, you're not even going to notice that you're watching a black and white movie. I mean, the film is so well made. You're just into the story, you were talking about the camera movements too. I mean, the first scene when we get into the house, where we actually follow the doctor as he progresses through the house all the way up to his daughter's bedroom. It's actually a very slow, tense scene, the way that it's shot, the music that's playing, stuff like that. So yeah, I can definitely see the German expressionism analogy there. Mike.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to add, also kind of like, like the whole mask thing, fucking... I was thinking of, like, Tim Burton's Batman. Because the Joker does have her wear, like, that same mask.
A little bit, yeah. No, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mike.
I guess I'll open my thoughts on just the fact that she wears that mask most of the movie. I mean, I think that adds to a specific style of horror where they understand, like, the viewer seeing that mask is kind of forcing the audience to come up with their own imagination about what she looks like under there. You know something nefarious is going on once you start to, figure out, or once the story starts to progress and you realize what her father's up to. It almost enhances because you want to see what's underneath that mask, but even the mask in itself is kind of creepy, just the way it looks. I remember for the longest time reading about how the surgery scene was iconic just because of the time in film history it took place. People hadn't seen something like that, and it feels very procedural, right? They're not trying to add all these crazy enhanced effects to it to like take it over the top. It just literally looks like someone's face being removed, and I think that's obviously what they were going for, and it was effective. And is Venom correct in it has some of the pitfalls of like just what techniques were capable of at the time? Sure, but I mean you have to realize you're watching something from 1960, so how would 1960s audiences react to this? Overall, I found this movie easy to watch. 90 minutes, not a moment wasted. This isn't my first watch. I had seen it before, long time ago, to where I definitely needed the refresher if I was going to speak on it. I mean, it's good practice to watch everything for shows anyway, but this one specifically, I was like, I have to. There's no way I'd be able to talk about it. And I found myself really pulled in by the story, and as other characters start to figure out what's going on, the confrontations and the conclusion I felt was satisfying, and overall just a really good movie. It's sitting at 7.6 on IMDb too, so it looks like it's gotten that acknowledgement over the years. I heard originally it was banned. I don't know if it was banned here or if it just didn't get a release because it wasn't on the radar, but it took a while to be seen in different countries, and I think reaction to it has improved over the years. It's one of those things where maybe it didn't get its due back in the day. I mean, The Thing is always a great example of that, but now it's pretty much looked at as a classic. So I am kind of interested to know what modern audiences see or think of it if they're seeing it for the first time. But I absolutely adored it. Very effective at what it was doing. And it's always aided by a great story and characters. I mean, that should always be your first goal in any type of movie you're making.
Yeah, and it has the Puppet Master theme throughout it, so fucking great.
It definitely is reminiscent of that style, yeah.
No, it was legitimately. I feel like this is where they ripped off. Because Richard Band usually rips off other movies. Scores to make his scores. I feel like this is where he got that score. He's like, yeah, I can do that. I'll just do it's fucking interesting. Actually, a fun fact about this movie: the girl who plays Christine, Edith Scobe, the Mask. She actually was in a movie called Holy Motors in 2012, where she actually wears that mask again.
I do remember that now that I think about it. Yeah. I remember seeing Holy Motors. Absolutely. That wasn't that long ago. Or at least not that long ago that I saw it.
Yeah, she wears a similar mask. It was a big thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's what do you call it? It's like Janet Leigh driving her same car in the fog that she drove in Psycho.
Yeah, that's the only good part of that fucking movie.
Exactly. But
didn't she bring it back for H2O as well?
That's what I'm talking about. It's the only good movie. It's the only good part of that movie.
I'll go with that.
Yeah, I'll agree there.
Yeah. Now, I will say that this movie is not going to resonate with everyone. Pacing is going to be an issue for some people. As anybody who's listened to me for a while knows, I'm very okay with slow-paced, films, especially when they give us a satisfying ending, which, I was very satisfied with this ending. We get the final culmination of what happens to everyone in the house, but then it's kind of a mystery what happens to our protagonist, She kind of just walks into the deep, dark woods and the movie ends. And I like that, because ultimately there might be some hope for her. Face is we didn't even talk about her face really when the mask comes off.
Eye of the Beholder?
Yes. Is that the one? Is that the Twilight Zone episode?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's exactly what I thought of when I first saw that. I'm like, holy shit, that's incredibly the Twilight Zone, the Masks episode. I'm like, Jesus, it looks almost exactly. So I did kind of like that. I almost wish they didn't show her face though, because I forget if it was Mike or Derek who made the point. When you see a woman walking around with a mask like that all the time, the image that we have in our head of what she looks like is always going to be way worse than what we actually get. And it was this time too. I mean, because I'm thinking if she's wearing a mask, then she might have like open wounds. I'm thinking like it's a medical thing, but it really just turned out to be more like a vanity thing. She just didn't really want her face, exposed, even though she never leaves the house. She just felt more comfortable in the mask or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
I think it has something to do with like the dad, because he's like, make sure you attain to it to put it on.
right, that's right. That's right. He did kind of always egg her on to keep it on, even though she did take it off once or twice in the film. One time she took it off quite effectively to scare her potential face mate later, like I said, Edna Gruber, before she's actually before she goes through the facial removal surgery. They actually have like a really cool scene where she's in the operating room while Edna's just kind of waiting to go through the procedure, and Louise takes her mask off, and boom, there's the fucking.
Yeah, it's actually.
I'm sorry, not Louise, Christiane, my bad.
Yeah, this is a fucking great scene where I actually just posted the Japanese poster of this movie. It's probably one of the best posters ever for this movie ever. It's on my Facebook.
Awesome, I'll check it out. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah,
Nice.
It's a great movie.
All right, so it sounds like all three of us would recommend Eyes Without a Face if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, sorry that we got kind of deep into spoiler territory, but I mean, it's from 1960. Come on, this movie's older than I am, and I'm fucking ancient. So, yeah.
Hey.
All right, next on the docket, we're going to go with a slightly more modern film. We're going into 2014 now. This film comes to us from Austria, though it is in German. I think they just speak German in Austria, right? There's no actual Austrian language. So we're 2014, Austria. We're looking at a 1 hour and 40-minute runtime. The American release for this film is September 11th, 2015. Oh, that's kind of sad. But anyway, our synopsis is as follows. Twin boys move to a new house with their mother after she has face-changing cosmetic surgery. But under the bandages is someone the boys don't recognize. Now, I'm gonna say that this movie is one of many perfect examples of why I don't watch trailers. If anyone saw the trailer for Goodnight Mommy before they watched the film, they were given a completely different idea of what the movie was going to be. Watching the original trailer, it makes the mom look like the antagonist. They actually edit certain scenes in the movie together that aren't in the movie together, but for the trailer, they'll edit them in a way that it looks like mom is like some kind of fucked up monster type thing, eating bugs and shit like that, even though nothing like that happens in the film. So, as we've said, two boys, the synopsis says moves into a new house, even though we don't really ever get that impression in the film. No one ever mentions it's a new house or anything, but whatever. It is a gorgeous house, beautiful house. And of course, mom comes back from surgery. I have a lot of issues with this movie because of plot holes, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, in my personal opinion, the first half of this movie writes a check that the second half of this movie can't cash. This movie is basically two films. The first half of the movie is a solid psychological thriller. It's all about the mystery. It's all about, is this really their mom? Because we don't know. Obviously, we're introduced to these characters as we're watching the movie. So, we tend to kind of want to believe the boys that it's not their mom. But at the same time, we know we're watching a horror movie. So there's always that little kernel of mystery there, and it works for me. The first half of this film I loved. I thought it was great. Now, mind you, I'm not saying I dislike the second half of the film, but the second half of the film really ramps up the violence and the torture and everything else. It pretty much almost completely abandons its psychological aspect until you get to the very final shot of the film, the very last scene. Then it kind of goes back to its psychological roots. But I just felt like the second half, as much as I loved the violence and all the torture, loved it in the sense that visually it looked nice. Obviously, I don't like the fact that this basically innocent woman is being tortured by her fucking sociopath child. And yeah, this is the second movie I've seen this weekend where it's literally just a sociopathic child that just, you can't help it. The other one we'll talk about on Fresh Cuts tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, this movie, I mean, this kid is, and I say kid, that might be a little bit of a spoiler. I don't know how spoilery we want to get with this one.
Oh yeah, I got to bring it up.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of have to, because it is a major part of the film. But basically, they mention that it's twin boys, Lucas and Elias, who are living with their mother. The problem is, one of the issues I had with this movie the very first time I watched it is that you can pick out the twist 5 minutes into the film. Literally, the very first scene where mom is with the boys, I literally called it out. I'm like, oh, okay. It's so obvious because no mother would ever treat her child like that. Basically, we get a scene where the twins are in the kitchen and mom pours one of them a glass of juice, only one of them. And then the boy says, Lucas wants a glass of juice too. And the mom basically just says, well, tell Lucas to ask me himself. And she just walks away. And then Elias says to Lucas, you should really apologize. So, they're obviously setting up that there's some kind of tension between mom and Lucas. But instantly, I'm like, no fucking way. There's no way that a mother treats her child like that. It's one thing to be mad at your child. It's another thing completely to not feed or clothe them, which was the accusations that we were getting here in the film. So literally right from the first scene, I called it out. And if you haven't figured it out by now, just by that description, Lucas is not there. Lucas is fucking dead. He's dead the whole movie. Every time we see Lucas and Elias together, it's just Elias's, unreliable narrator element. Basically, he sees him, but no one else does. As you watch the movie, too, it just becomes more and more obvious, so that by the time the twist actually comes, it's like, well, yeah, duh. And then that's it. There's no additional twist. Like, I was expecting, the first time I watched this, I was expecting an additional twist, figuring that the first one was so obvious that they're going to do something else, like, oh, it's actually not their mom, or, dad shows up at the end for some weird, I don't know. But the point is
came back
that,
from hunting, kids.
Yeah, exactly. Something. I just got back from the liquor store, whatever. But yeah, literally, that is the major reveal of the movie, is that Lucas is not dead. That Lucas is dead, and that Elias is basically by himself, but that he hears Lucas's voice throughout his day. Obviously, Lucas is a representation of his psychopathy, because this kid is fucked up. I think this kid was fucked up from birth, because am I the only one that thinks Elias killed his brother?
Yes.
I 100% think he killed his brother.
No, I agree. Too.
Especially with the mom saying, in that final scene, the mom yelling at him, it wasn't your fault. Lucas's death wasn't your fault. Mm-hmm. To me, that sounds like a parent trying to assure her kid that it wasn't his fault, even though it was.
Even though it was just true. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I really, really enjoyed the first half of this film. Solidly a psychological thriller with a lot of mystery and some, I wouldn't go so far as to say red herrings, but like little bits of information that make you think, maybe the boys actually are right. Like at one point they rubbed the mom's mole off her face. Like mom had a mole before the cosmetic surgery. And then for some reason she has it removed during surgery, but then paints it back on. And after the boys basically decide to tie this woman up in a bed because they don't believe it's their mom, they actually rub the mole off her face. And I'm like, oh, shit. Maybe these kids got something to it. Like, I was really hoping that there was something more to it, that there was going to be a secondary twist of some kind. Because, like I said, we all see the twist coming right away from that first scene. It just doesn't. If you either are a parent or know someone who's a parent, you know that no matter how shitty they are, they don't treat their kid like that. They're not going to not feed them and just ignore their complete existence, to not even acknowledge them. So, yeah, it's kind of a weak twist, but, the movie itself is still great. Like I said, I enjoy the first half more. The second half is where all the violence and torture and everything else goes. So all the traditional horror fans who just love the violence are going to love the second half of the movie. like I said, I really wish that they would have continued the psychological aspect. You can ramp up the horror in the second half, but keep a part of that psychological aspect at least until the very end, and then you can, explain it all away or whatever. So this is a movie that I enjoyed. I'm not going to say I loved it. I wanted to the first time I watched it because I walked into it maybe with heavy expectations because of all the great things I had heard about it. But I ended up, just like I said, really enjoying the first half. And the second half is still good, but just, I don't know. It feels like the second half of the movie kind of fails the first half a little bit. But like I said, that's just my opinion. I'm sure it's going to differ from others. So let's start with Mike this time. Mike, what'd you think of Goodnight, Mommy?
I am a fan of this movie as well. I recently talked about it on Summer Series. And actually, you know what? When I say recently, that might have actually been last year's Summer Series. It's kind of like getting hazy in my head. But yeah, I liked it the first time I saw it when, it released back in 2014. And I pretty much agree with everything you said. It definitely takes a tonal change from more psychological horror to like actual just physically like body horror in a sense,
Yeah, visceral.
Visceral. Yeah, some brutal stuff going on. I do wonder. It's like, was that the director's kind of admission that maybe the way we structured the story with the dialogue, that the quote unquote twist isn't enough to carry through the entire running time, so we have to add other elements to it? Because yeah, I agree. Like, even if the twist, it could have got you on the first time watch, just depending on being observant. I think where I agree that the twist is a little bit telegraphed. Where I would go back and forth on is the twin actually like present as a ghost, or is this just the surviving twin's delusions out of like guilt of likely murdering his almost like a Tyler Durden situation?
Yeah, I was thinking like, that actually.
Yeah, is it more that case where it's...
Hey, Lucas, do you like Huey Lewis in the News?
Oh, no.
Yeah. That's what I go more back and forth, and that's what, like, every time I watch, I try to pick up hints one way or the other to say whether, his brother is being a vengeful ghost. But then I'm like, but that also doesn't make sense, because why would the dead brother even want to harm the mom when we find out that the mom was really not up to anything nefarious to begin with? So I think it's maybe the kid's just a damn psychopath in the making, and this is how he's realizing it. It's coming out right in this way.
Yeah, because none of the other adults, no other adult in the movie acknowledges Lucas. Like the priest who picks them up after they try to run away never acknowledges the brother. What's that?
The Red Cross people.
The Red Cross people, exactly. Yeah, they never acknowledge the second child. So personally, I could be wrong, but yeah, I think it's just 100% a delusion, Elias's delusion. It could be the guilt for what he did to his brother, though I do have a theory about that I'll get into after everybody talks about their general thoughts. But yeah, go ahead and continue, Mike.
Just to wrap up the kind of opening and general thoughts on it, I do think it's an effective movie. It's well done. There's tension throughout as you're trying to figure out the little nuance. I've always said that the mark of a good movie is that, or at least this type of movie, is that it doesn't 100% hinge on the twist. So as opposed to something like The Sixth Sense, where it feels like that movie was really all about being built towards the, oh my God, he was what? Whether you picked it up before that or not.
Yeah,
but this
here
one,
the whole time.
Yeah, this one, my thoughts on the movie don't go down even going into the movie knowing that, and I'm fine on repeat viewings. I still like the acting performance. I think the child plays a great fucking cold ass fucking personality, and I think everything's still effective on multiple watches.
Absolutely.
So I'll leave it at that for now.
And how cool is it that these are real life brothers that are actually named Lucas and Elias starring in this movie? I like that. I don't know if maybe they did that just so that the child actors wouldn't get confused when people called them by their character name. I don't know. But it's still effective and it works. Because for a short time, I actually thought it was one actor that was just doubled on screen. But once they actually had more interactions where they were actually like touching each other and like there was the slap fight scene, shit like that. Like, oh, okay, that's actually two actors there. And yeah, when you watch the credits, the very first credit, Lucas and Elias Schwartz, or Schwarz, I think is how you pronounce it. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. Derek, why don't you come in here?
Elias, you're not fond of me, lobster boy. Okay, Goodnight, Mommy. This is like my 5th time watching this movie, and also my 2nd time doing it on a podcast.
Nice.
Yeah, Goodnight, Mommy. I did not like this movie the first time I seen it. It's pretty good, but I knew the twist fucking 5 seconds into the movie, and I just checked the fuck out because this fucking twist has been done to fucking death in movies.
Yep.
Since the fucking 70s.
Exactly.
There's better movies that fucking did this twist better.
Oh, by far.
And it's just lazy and it's fucking boring when you're watching it. And yeah, the first half's a little bit more interesting. I'll give you that. That's where like most of the Del Toro-esque kind of like mystery stuff starts happening. Or is she really eating bugs? Is she not? It's like that shit that's happening. That's a lot of cockroach imagery that kept me interested. I'm like, is this going to turn into a kill a cockroach movie out of nowhere? That'd be amazing. But then it turns into like this kind of subdued torture porn where they're using a fucking magnifying glass and ripping off House of Wax with the super glue. Yeah, it's kind of boring. I just don't like watching people torture people.
Yeah, like for me, the biggest thing is just the fact that this kid is just absolutely delusional to think that this woman isn't his mother. Yes, I understand. She got cosmetic surgery, so she looks different. But this is one of the first aspects of why I'm going to say that this woman is a bad and selfish mother, is that she didn't sit her boy down and say, hey, I'm going in for facial reconstruction surgery or cosmetic surgery, whatever. I may look a little bit different when I get back, but please don't be scared or think that it's not me. I mean, it seems like any parent would fucking do that. Would sit them down just to tell them, that I may look a little bit different, but, it's still me, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't happen. Next. Who is supposed to be watching these kids when she was in the hospital getting the surgery? If anyone was even watching these kids, they bolted as soon as mom got back. And mom is fucking, I mean, she's basically bedridden, bandages all over her face. Within a couple of days, yeah, she's outside of the house doing housework and stuff like that. But, I'm just wondering, like, who's supposed to be watching your kids? How can you be watching your kids if you're recovering from surgery? So that really bothered me about the movie, too, that she didn't take concessions for her kids going into it. And
what the fuck goes up with that road?
What's that?
What the fuck goes up with that road?
The road that they live on?
Yeah, why is it all like bouncy? What the fuck?
Oh, right, with the water underneath. Yeah, I was wondering, like, I've seen areas like that where like the grass is floating on a big thing of water, but like if you break the grass, all the water kind of spurts out. But it looked like they were like jumping on clay, like a clay road. Yeah. But it was like water underneath. Like it's definitely nothing I've ever seen. Maybe it's something, that's common in Austria or, that part of Europe. I don't know.
We're gonna ask Arnold. Yeah, exactly. I roll in clay all the time over there.
Exactly. Let's see what else. Oh, the whole time that she's pretending that Lucas is still alive, I'm like, how do you think that's going to help your child? Like, why would you? Basically, if this boy is a psychopath, mom may have created him. Because why wouldn't you just try to convince him, look, Lucas is gone. It was an accident. No one is blaming you, but he's not with us anymore. If you continue to say that you're talking to Lucas, people are going to think you're crazy. Like, to me, it seems like a normal thing that a parent would say to a child. Like, but no, she lets him continue living in this weird, because at first I thought Lucas was like an imaginary friend. because because mom, like I said, mom acknowledged Lucas's existence, but not like he was standing there. Like she didn't acknowledge his presence, just his existence. So it's like, I thought it was kind of like, how a mom will be like, oh, is your imaginary friend, playing with you or whatever, blah, blah, blah. When it's all cute.
Howdy.
These kids are like, I don't know how old they are, but they're 12, 13, 14. I mean, they're not exactly 8-year-olds with an imaginary friend. So that theory went out the window pretty fast. But yeah, the whole point is that this woman is an incredibly bad and selfish mother, not telling Elias, look, he's gone. You can't keep going with this delusion. And obviously mom is a TV personality. She's a talk show host in Austria. So, maybe she's a little vapid, shallow, whatever you want to go with. But it definitely, I feel like Elias was a product of mom's parenting. I might be on a limb on that one.
I also think there's definitely some type of grief and guilt going on with the mom too, because I think the fact she might know or have a understanding of the circumstances that he killed his brother, and it's maybe changed her as a mother too. And as much as she's trying to look at her surviving son the same way, maybe she knows there's something going on with him, but she almost can't bring herself to acknowledge it either. So there could be dual issues going on. Obviously the surviving son's a goddamn monster from all we know, assuming he killed the brother, which we think he did. But then there's also the mom, who is almost, she is obviously the biological real mom, but she's almost taking on another identity as well, like the post one of my sons was murdered mom, which she probably has changed some ways as a mother because of that, and she's trying to deal with that grief and that trauma and still navigate how to be a mom to my son that likely murdered his brother. So I think it really kind of plays and tiptoes that line, and that's why I say even knowing the twist, it doesn't 100% ruin. And I don't even want to say the fun of the movie, because I wouldn't say it's a fun movie at all, but it doesn't ruin the, everything we get in the running time, just the dynamic between characters. They're both trying to navigate something. He's obviously sick in the head, or has delusions that were causing his behavior, but the mom's also dealing with her own shit because of the situation, and she is likely always going to be a shell of herself. I guess until the end of the movie, because we'll get to that. But
she gets roasted.
Let's say, yeah, basically she is almost. I wouldn't call her a fraud, because she's not purposely trying to deceive anyone, but she definitely is a changed person because of the events. So that's why I think the movie works in that way, where even the viewer, it tries to trip us up well, is there something to what he's saying? Ultimately there isn't, but I think the actress plays that part so well, with her kind of standoffishness, because there's definitely is some dynamic between mother and son here where you're well, the mom doesn't seem all there. Venom, you pointed out kind of how she reacts to him or treats him in some ways. Mm-hmm. But that's what I think. It's two flawed, broken characters for different reasons.
Yeah, it's kind of
they're trying to navigate life.
Valid.
Yeah. Pyewacket did this better.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Pyewacket did it better. Well, yeah, absolutely. Hellbender did it better.
Yeah, Pyewacket's fucking Burn of the Mom was pretty better too.
I'll go with that. Yeah, definitely. Now, I have a couple of theories on how Elias may have dispatched of his brother. Now, I'm basing this on scenes in the film, and you tell me if it's a stretch or if I'm just being crazy. Theory number one. Do you remember the scene when Elias is floating on that raft on the lake, on the little pond next to the house? Okay. Mm-hmm. He dips his head into the water, and then he pulls it out of the water and doesn't see anyone. What I'm thinking is the very opening scene, we established that the two brothers enjoyed playing hide and go seek, because we see them playing hide and go seek in the cornfield. What I'm thinking is they were playing hide and go seek in the water that day. And I say this because if you look very carefully, when he lifts up his head, when Elias lifts up his head out of the water and looks around, if you look at the background, we see bubbles coming out of the water. We see like, the traditional drowning person's bubbles, and then the bubbles stop. And Elias is still looking around. I'm thinking that might be an actual flashback. Like, that wasn't a modern day scene, a present day scene. I'm thinking that was a flashback of when Lucas died, which would also explain why Elias thinks he's still alive, because he never actually saw him die. You know what I mean? I feel like maybe they never found his body. Maybe he might have drowned and, got pulled out into the ocean or whatever the fuck, So that's one theory. The other theory I have is that he burned his brother to death. And I only base that on Mom's reaction when she finds that lighter in his room. Remember, she gets really mad at him and she asks him, "What are you doing with this?" And he says, "Oh, I was going to burn some books." Like, that's a valid reason for a fucking child to have a lighter. But yeah, instantly I'm like, oh. And then at the end of the film, how proficient was he with starting that fire? Like, he knew that formaldehyde was flammable. He filled that tank with formaldehyde. And then he knew that all of the curtains in that house were basically made of paper mache. They were like linen, like a really thin material. So I'm thinking this kid is averse with fire, and that could be potentially another way that he took out his brother. So yeah, I'm thinking accidental drowning or purposeful burning. Those are my theories.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we never get a confirmation in the film. All we hear is the mom telling Elias it wasn't your fault. No one blames you, blah, 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 which, to me sounds like a parent trying to convince their kid that it wasn't their fault when it actually was. So yeah, this is a very, I don't know, polarizing film in the sense that going into it, I had heard such great things about it. And ultimately, it is a good film. I don't want to sit here and make it sound like it's a bad film. I am solidly going to say that the first half, in my opinion, is just way better. The psychological aspect of it is just so much more compelling than watching these two kids torture their mother. But one thing I could say about it is if you're a fan of torturing people with crazy glue, this is the movie for you. So line up, my friends, because we get some awesome crazy glue torture in this fucking movie.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Oh yeah. I think you used the word earlier, visceral. That's what it is. Nothing's played for comedy or absurdness or jokes. It's very visceral what we do get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will give this kid credit. I mean, usually evil people are smart, and yeah, this kid is actually pretty smart. He sets up that trap, knowing that his mother would probably eventually get out of the bedroom, but he perfectly set up that trip wire right outside the front door, knocking Mom right the fuck out.
There's legit like a Home Alone montage where he's just making weapons.
Yep, yeah, that's right. They're taking the suction cups off the toy arrows and sharpening them. Honestly, I'm glad they didn't do anything with the crossbow, because if that was a toy crossbow, there's no way that it's going to be able to shoot the pointed sticks hard enough to be able to impale someone. You know what I mean?
And Goodnight Mommy, they could have, though.
I guess, yeah. I mean, that's the movie magic, but it definitely bothered me. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, there it is. Goodnight Mommy, 2014. A solid movie, I would say, but it just depends on the kind of horror fan you are. If you're more into psychological horror, you're going to like the first half better. If you're more into the visceral, torturous parts of horror, then the second half is probably going to be your gig. But yeah, either way, well worth watching. And let's see how the American remake is. I mean, this is a movie that actually has room for improvement. You know what I mean? This isn't The Ring, or should I say Ringu or Let the Right One In, where it's damn near a flawless film. This is a film that definitely has some flaws that the American remake could actually correct. So fingers crossed that it actually does. We'll see.
Plus, it is the queen of the remakes, Naomi Watts.
Again, yeah, that's right. All right, gentlemen, any closing thoughts on this one before we go?
Yeah. Check it out. And watch the Lodge.
I would say check it out now with an extra bit of urgency, only because the American remakes floating out there now, so don't be tempted to watch that one first. Even though Naomi Watts, is great, I'm sure she does a fine job, but
They're probably gonna
don't ruin the
cut her
experience of
titty
the
off.
original.
Exactly.
If they
Yeah, I would
Watch the original first.
if they cut her titty out like in the house that Jack built, that could be amazing though.
Possibly. I mean, I hope they don't ramp up the gore. I mean, they might, but it's not a theatrical release, so they have a little bit more freedom. They don't have to worry about an R rating or whatever. So who knows? I might be hoping against hope, obviously. But this is definitely an example where I am curious on what the American remake is going to do. Since this one, like I said, we've kind of already discussed it. The few flaws that the issue has, some character flaws, some storytelling flaws, things like that. It's a very good movie that is definitely imperfect. So that's pretty much the gist of it.
So this is how the end of the remake happens.
Uh-oh.
It ends directly about the same way, but then Sadako comes and saves Naomi Watts. Her delusional twin. Finally got you.
By the way, I forgot to mention that scene after the fire starts with the firemen. Did you guys notice that in the background?
Yeah.
After the fire starts at the end, there's a shot of the outside of the house. You see the firemen kind of running up. And then if you look in the background, you see what looks like a female figure in a yellow dress walking out of the house and then quietly walking into the woods. It's so subtle, most people would miss it. But I have a big-ass TV, and I don't sit that far from my TV, so I noticed it. But yeah, that I actually thought was cool. I did like that. I will say I hate the final shot of the film. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Doesn't make sense a happy family that was murdered by one of the siblings. It's like, wouldn't the spirits be like vengeful ghosts? Like, I understand it's your son, but he fucking murdered you. Why would you be all happy and smiles? And then the last question I have. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
Oh, good. Well, I interpreted it as that was Elias's death, and he was entering whatever heaven was in his mind.
And that's my next and final question for this one. Do you guys think Elias is alive? Do you think he walked out of that house, or do you think he just stayed there? Because there's no indication in the film that Elias lived. We never see him again until the cornfield scene when all three of them are together and smiling.
Well, see, that's the question is the end trying to tell us that he survived and his delusion lives on now that he's now seen his dead brother and dead mom?
Like 8 Halloween now?
Yeah, or is he dead and all three of them are like ghosts or something?
Right. Your second option makes less sense to me only because of how they died. Because if Elias did murder his brother, and we obviously know he murdered his mother, why would their spirits be happy with them? Like, if all three of them were dead, you'd think Elias would be going somewhere different than his mother and Lucas. The
only explanation I can have for that is like if somehow they acknowledge he did it because he's sick in the head, and now maybe as ghosts, all three okay, we're all finally at peace now because we're together again as
or you know how I would end it after that scene where it's like the Lord of the Rings ending of happy living gay together. You have a scene where
the Hobbit kids.
You have a scene where the corn from that scene is being shipped to Gatlin, and we find out Elias is he who walks behind the rose.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah,
multiverse.
That's interesting. That's an interesting thought. Yeah. Hey, I wouldn't be against it. That's for damn sure. I love seeing movie tie-ins.
Yeah, see, it's like that. It'll be like the end of a Split.
All right, folks. Well, I think that's the end of our episode. What is this? 47 or 48? I forget which.
568.
48.
48 episodes. So we're 2 episodes away from the big one. The big, anniversary.
First big one, yeah.
Yeah,
and I get the pick next, huh? Wow.
Yes, and Derek has the next picks, which means that it's going to be a fun show.
Maybe.
I will say that Mike's last picks were awesome, though. I can't take that away from him. 2 great haunted house movies. So, But we'll give him
Yes.
credit for that one at least once.
Brought me enough goodwill to make my next set of picks horrible.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he's like, which Wes Craven movie could I pick now?
See, did they do a sequel to Shocker?
They did. It's called.
God, that's awful. That's what it's called. That's awful. That's just the name of the movie. So let's go with that. All right, folks. Let's go around the horn and see what other people have, other shows that you can hear our voices on. Let's go ahead and start with Derek. Derek, where can the folks hear you?
No More Room in Hell. This episode when it drops, because this is the first thing I recorded in a few months.
Well, yeah, you've had a busy work schedule, I know.
And personal life shit.
Yeah. But
Some of your summer series episodes are out, right?
Oh yeah, summer series. Yeah, there you go. When me and Mr. Venom fight each other to the death.
Yes. First we fight over Creep Show, and then I forget what the second fight was for. But yeah.
Who would kill the child?
Yeah, well, who could kill a child? That's true, because everybody was higher on the movie than I. Had I had that Blu-ray the first time, yes, I would have been a little bit higher on it as well, but I got to be honest when I do my reviews. You know, I definitely don't want to ever fault a movie and give it a bad review because I couldn't find a good version of it. But ultimately, if it's the only time I've ever seen the movie, I still have to kind of voice that, you know, the experience wasn't great. And I said it on the show. I said it on Podcast Under the Stairs that if I ever saw it in nice, crisp Blu-ray, that I would probably like it more. And guess what? I do, thanks to Derek. So, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I'm just going to get everybody a Blu-ray copy so we can watch it.
There you go. I love it. Mike, where else can people hear you, buddy?
Obviously, we got the Fresh Cuts that's coming out weekly. If you're listening to this episode, then that means our latest Fresh Cuts episode on, what are we doing this week? Pearl, right? Yeah. Oh. Pearl, that episode is probably already out and available, so listen to that.
That dirty whore.
EGOT, that's right. And the latest episode of Watch This Movie, Mike, I had Bo Ransdell as a guest. That should be out either before this or within a couple of days of this. It's going to be a big week of releases for No More Room in Hell stuff, so
yeah,
keep an eye on that. I actually wanted to have that one out last week, but just I got busy, so
yeah,
it's out soon. And what else?
Eddie Coyle, Mike.
I think we're close to releasing.
Yeah, I was going to speak on that one.
Crystal Lake Gift Shop. Okay, I'll let you take that. Yeah, but I think that's it for me. I have a couple summer series episodes out, but those ones have been out a little while longer, so I'm sure people have already. And that's it for me.
Nice. All right, for me, obviously, No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts. Our latest episode is not episode 12, despite the labeling on it. So if you do happen to, if you're a listener and you happen to see episode 12, it is not technically episode 12. Unfortunately, Derek had a little bit of a family emergency, so he wasn't able to join us. So Don and I decided to do a Fantasia Film Fest special, basically a bonus episode where we did spoiler-free reviews for 3 kaiju / monster movies that are being released. Either already have been released overseas or will be released later. We did look at one classic kaiju film that was actually a re-release, and that's Space Monster out of Korea from 1967. It actually predates Yongari by like a year or two. So when we reviewed Yongari and said that was the first Korean kaiju movie, we were actually wrong, because Space Monster was thought to be a lost film. No one had it. No one could find it, so they just accepted it as a lost film. But then Rob Bonk and the guys over at SRS Films were able to get a hold of someone who had a 35 millimeter print of it. They were able to work out a deal because the person who had the film didn't really want to give it up. They kind of, for whatever reason, they just didn't really want it to have a commercial release or whatever. But basically, SRS Films is going to have a limited window. They're actually going to release Space Monster from 1967 on DVD only, as most SRS releases are. And, that'll be out for a limited window. I think it's either like 60 or 90 days that they'll be able to sell that DVD. So I don't have an actual release date. And then the other two films we looked at are brand new films that are getting releases this year. The first one was What to Do with a Dead Kaiju, which is not a kaiju film despite its title. It is literally a dramatic comedy about what the government of Japan does with dead kaijus. Like, it's something that I've thought of, since I was a kid. What do they do with these dead bodies, these gigantic dead bodies? And now we have a movie that kind of shows it. It shows it in a comedic way, but it's still a pretty entertaining movie. So check that out. And then the third movie we did on that episode is the one that I was the most, expecting and the most excited about. And that is, of course, Shin Ultraman. And my friends, I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. Don and I gave it a glowing review. It's literally one of my favorite kaiju movies ever at this point. I fucking loved it. I highly, and I mean highly recommend when that thing gets a U.S. release, it is a must watch for all kaiju / creature feature fans. You gotta watch. It's just the most beautiful man in a suit kaiju fights I've ever seen in my life. A great, compelling story. Fans of the original series, they know that the Science Patrol is a big part of it. The Science Patrol in the movie is great. I can't say enough good things about it. So please check out Shin Godzilla and check out that latest episode of Creature Comforts, available now. The other title that I'm working on right now, that I'm actually finished editing it, I'm just kind of working on the artwork a little bit, is our latest venture. Michael and myself have started the Crystal Lake Gift Shop, and that is, of course, an episode-by-episode retrospective of the Friday the 13th, the series TV show that aired from 1987 to 1990. We've got 3 seasons of that show to look at, and we went ahead and finally recorded our first episode. It's ready. It's edited. Like I said, I just got to put some final touches on the artwork. And as you listen to this episode, that episode of the Crystal Lake Gift Shop will be available, where, of course, we look at episode number 1. And our guest on that episode is Mr. Doug Tilley, an old veteran friend of ours from Theme Warriors and various other podcasts as well. That episode will be available as you listen to this one, so look out for that. That'll be on the No More Room in Hell feed, of course. Derek already mentioned our guest spots on the podcast Under the Stairs, where I think they just released those episodes like a week or two ago. The 6s, like I said, 76, 86, 96, and 06, which turned out to be some pretty fun conversations, some good back and forth, things like that. So check that out. That's on Legion Podcasts if you're interested. And I think that's everything I have, Mike.
Okay, well, in that case, that's... What? What, Derek? I was just going to say that's going to wrap up No More Room in Hell, number 48. We will be back sometime, I'm guessing where we are in the month. It would either be the very end of September or hopefully early October with the next episode, which will be Derek's picks. And unless he's already aware of them, then he will figure out what picks he wants for that episode. And then let's see. I mean, October is always that fun month with Halloween in it. So maybe we'll do another commentary special at some point and release it in time for Halloween.
At this point, our Halloween and Christmas commentaries are almost tradition. So, yeah, definitely keep up on that.
Good.
It's great to do those, too, because there's no preparation. It's not like I got to take notes and research the movie. We're just watching it and talking about it while we watch it. So I'm down. Yeah. I'm down for a Halloween commentary, definitely.
On things.
Oh.
Yeah, we got real lucky last year that I picked a movie that I didn't realize no one else but me had seen, but at least it was fun.
Remember we did that one for Sleigh Bells, or whatever the fucking terrible movie was with Barry Boswick? That was great.
I didn't hate that movie. I was drunk enough that I enjoyed it.
It was great. It was like this.
Come on, Santa versus Krampus. That's always a good time.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, we're going to get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for listening, but it is time to descend back into the lake of fire. We will catch you next time. Let's say bye to all our listeners.
Goodbye with your eyes without a face.
Please don't get cosmetic surgery. Nothing good ever comes of it.
Hell no.
Stay creepy.